Welcome to the Level Up Your Band podcast, episode 80. Hello, and welcome back to the Level Up Your Band podcast. My name is Gavin Patterson, and I'm here with Julian Pombo.
Hello.
How are you with your
list? Okay, I don't want to give too much away about what today's episode's going to be about. How I injured myself. No. Yeah, it's okay. I hurt myself a couple of days ago to see if I could still feel. That's a song lyric, isn't it? No, I got tendinitis because world's opening back up and I started gigging lots all of a sudden, and my poor little wrist couldn't handle it. I just petered out because I'm on the wrong side of 25 and my body's breaking down, basically, from what people have told me. So
He's such an old man now.
I know.
Getting married, nearly 30.
I've got a couple of grey hairs coming in.
It's all over. Bus pass is on the way.
Yeah, 100%. I expect it any day now. Apart from that, things been pretty good. It's healed pretty quickly. I mostly because of luck. I think I just got incredibly lucky because it was pretty bad. But yeah, that's what today's episode is going to be about: how to avoid this situation. But yeah, no, I'm okay. Apart from this, I'm okay. How are you doing?
I'm fine. I'm good.
You've been gigging lots, but
properly back into gigging. Yeah.
None of this because you're probably more sensible than I am.
Well, that happened. This actually happened to me years ago, so I've been kind of wary of that.
Yeah.
It happened to me in school, like I was saying earlier.
Yeah.
Before we started the podcast. Same wrist and everything. My sixth year in school, my last year in school, basically consisted of me playing drums and nothing else. That's all I did. I was playing drums all the time. And I started to get a pain in my wrist. And it got all swollen up and stuff. But ever since then, I've been super aware of technique and taking care of it and not being stupid and all that. But that's because it's twofold. Because it happened to me already, and my drum teacher at the time, it happened to her, but her damage was done. It was permanent. And she ended up with loose cartilage in her wrist joint, and she had to get an operation to get it out. And then she had a big scar, and then she got it tattooed and all this. So she had to completely change her technique from matched grip to traditional grip to overcome the injury. So it affected her forever, and she was constantly like drilling into me, do not have crap technique.
I was getting to the point where I had considered, am I going to have to become left-handed? Because I can't even, the pain was so severe, I couldn't do this.
Right.
Which meant I couldn't even turn my hand around to then be able to.
Yeah. Mine was never that bad, but it was going to go there if I hadn't done something. So I got a little bracelet that as well. We'll get into that.
Anyway, so I think last week we were like, we might talk about Weezer. It'll have to wait.
Weezer can wait.
Weezer can wait because I think this is more important.
Yep.
Definitely. So, injuries, how to avoid them. I think a lot of people are going to be in this situation where, we've not gigged for a year and a half. I've still been, it's not that I've not been playing, but I mean, like, I don't simulate a gig every single time I practice,
Yeah.
I practice sitting down comfortably, and I don't play. I don't play like that. I play standing up.
Exactly. Yeah.
I don't even get a stool because a lot of the music, it just doesn't work really. So basically a year and a half out of action, and then jumping straight into it, thinking it was all going to be fine, totally messed me up.
Yeah, because how long's a gig? It's like it's 4 hours, but you have a maybe half-hour break in the middle, so it's 3.5 hours of solid playing every weekend after having done nothing.
Not to mention, you're also, lifting a lot of gear, so you need to be really, really, really careful with that, so just something to think about. Anyway, so I've just got a couple of bullet points here, and I'll just kind of, they're not in any specific order, except number one, if you notice any pain anywhere that would affect your playing, do something. Because I didn't do that. Because partly out of ignorance, because I'd never experienced anything like this before, right? So I'm not saying that you should go, you should all turn into hypochondriacs, and like the slightest little pain in like your pinky finger is suddenly a cause for concern. But I noticed it when I was making some burgers. I was just making some burgers, flattening them out. Yeah. And I was like, my wrist there is a little sore. That's a bit weird. I'll keep an eye on that. Should be okay. It's probably nothing. It's probably just a weird pain. Probably slept on it weird.
Right, okay. And so you didn't know necessarily what caused the pain. You were like, yesterday I was building shelves and I was holding myself up. There was nothing like that. I was like, that is what caused it.
There was nothing. See, that was one of the first things that the doctors actually asked me. Is like, did you fall?
Yeah.
And I was like, no. And I was like, did something fall out? No. Mm-hmm. And they were like, okay, weird. Right. Because sometimes that can be, they're basically finding out if I had broken something.
Yeah, basically, if you feel pain and you know you haven't done anything that strenuous, then there's a problem. It's like I've got pain all in my left arm just now because I was on my back fixing something above me yesterday morning for about an hour. And it was heavy lifting, heavy work. And my left arm's like, But that's because I was doing a thing. But if I woke up with pain like this, for no reason, I'd be like, oh dear, something's going awfully wrong. What do I do all the time? Oh yeah, play drums. Maybe it's that.
Yeah. So, whatever, like go and see a doctor. Unfortunately, I had to go through because this whole situation here is totally different. I couldn't actually go, if this would have been sorted out so much quicker if I'd actually just been able to go in to see a GP and be like, can you look at this, please? And then they look at it and go, I think it's that. I called them up and I explained to them what it was. And they were like, and then they were like, okay, cool. Well, the doctor will phone you. And I was like, I can't show them because it would be so much quicker for me to just, it's down, I can walk there. I could just show you and we'll call you. Okay, right. So they called me and I explained what it was, and then they were like, A&E. And I was like, A&E?
It's A&E?
Seriously? I need to go to accident and emergency? Okay. So Rachel drives me to accident and emergency. And in accident and emergency are like, why are you here? Go to minor injuries. Oh. And then I go to minor injuries, and then minor injuries are like tendinitis. And I'm like, okay. How can I fix it? Ibuprofen and rest. And I was like, okay, cool. How long will it take?
Depends.
Not helpful, especially when this is your job, right?
Yep.
And I'd explain that, but like, it's there's I mean, like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah. There's not much you can do.
No, not much you can do. So I went home feeling very sorry for myself and was looking for answers and things. I should say this as well throughout the whole episode that I'm not a medical professional. He's not a medical professional.
What are you talking about? Of course, no.
we don't know anything about medicine at all. I'm just a guy. I just play bass. That's it. So if you want to, if you're like, I definitely have some problems, don't try out what I did. It worked for me. It might not necessarily work for you because you might have a different problem. So go and see a doctor. Anyway, so when I got home and I was like, tendinitis. What's caused the tendinitis? What have I done to do it? So that's the second thing you want to do, is after you have gone to see a doctor and you've got a diagnosis for what it is, because whatever it may be, figure out what, after you've
cut down to one wank a day, basically.
Who's left-handed these days? Probably everybody. I was sitting in front of a computer. Basically, I thought about it a lot, and I was like, what is causing... just to give you guys an idea of what had happened was my tendons were just really swollen, inflamed. And it was forcing my wrist to do this. For the people at home who can see that. Basically, it was kind of going to the left.
90 degrees.
Yeah, 90 degrees to the left side, right? And that's the tendons there contracting.
See, I've played in a band with you since 2015. Actually, tomorrow is our friend anniversary. Happy friend anniversary, 2015. I've always watched you play and have noticed that you have, and most bass players are like this, they have this weird angle in their left hand. And I was told by everyone in their Doug that you should always play the drums, in particular, because that's my thing, with as straight a wrist as you can get.
Yeah.
And you can't physically do that in bass. Otherwise, you'd be like this.
Well, you have to. As straight as possible, basically. I was... is
that possible?
It is possible. You need to just wear your bass pretty high. I'm sorry, guys. You're going to have to look like absolute dorks to play bass properly without hurting yourself.
So, if it's up high, though, that just gives you problems on the other hand.
Yeah. So, I wish I'd brought a bass to demonstrate.
Do you want a bass?
Well, yeah.
Right, keep talking. You wouldn't mind. Keep talking.
Yeah.
Go.
So, one of the problems that this is only going to be useful for the people that actually watch the video. For audio listeners, I'm so sorry. Anyway, the problem had come from basically my bass being too low. Yeah. Which is crazy because I never thought it was that low to begin with. So let's actually
bass.
Let's see how.
So you're sitting, obviously. So see, I would have thought like if the lower it went, the straighter your left hand would become, kind of like an upright. Because you're an upright, your wrist is straight, right?
Yeah. Let me take this splint off. Actually,
don't hurt yourself.
Some ASMR for the people that.
Oh yeah, Velcro. Sensual.
Me fumbling
super high quality Velcro.
Yeah. So my bass was too low, which was causing my wrist to sort of bend towards itself.
Okay.
Right? And what you want is this needs to be
what's that called?
Straight. Your forearm, basically. Your wrist and your forearm all need to be straight.
Aligned. It's exactly the same as drums.
You're pressing down with your...
See, there's no... See,
you're pressing down with the tips of your fingers.
But your right hand is doing the what do you call it?
Yeah. So
the bendies.
Honestly, like it's not too bad.
Because you're sitting as well.
It's probably because I'm sitting. A way you could... That's
better, yeah.
You could do that. You can overcome that is by using the classical guitar.
Yes.
But this is kind of where you want your bass to be anyway. It's sort of...
in between your legs.
Pretty high up. But if you're standing up, sort of pointing up diagonally.
45
It's
degree
like almost
angle.
like a 45-degree angle. And
Yeah.
anyway, yeah. So one of the things that I'm doing to sort of combat that is I'm having to basically change up my whole technique
Yeah.
for quite a wee while. So just to make sure that this wrist is as straight as possible, I'm just basically going to be adopting mostly a pick,
Plectrum, yeah.
which is fine because I was going there anyway because I like the sound of bass guitar with a pick anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not a big deal to me because I can kind of do both. But yeah. So the problem is that bass guitar neck was too low. I was having to scrunch up, and my wrist was doing this quite a lot.
Yep.
Probably because I was playing more with the flats of my fingers rather than the tips
Okay.
of my fingers. Yeah, so that was thing number one, to do with my playing, but then there were other things that I was kind of doing in my daily life, which I told you about in the caravan. You couldn't believe it when I told you.
Yep.
So, for those of you who don't know, I'm what's the name of is it the Ocean? No, I can't remember what it's called.
The Big Five personality
The Big Five
traits,
personality test.
Ocean,
I did one of them. Yeah. And I'm an extremely open and agreeable person.
So people give you new ideas and you're like, yeah, sure.
Yeah. I'm like, oh, dude, sick. I'm totally down for that. That sounds brilliant. So
As a result,
Rachel and I, Rachel being my fiance, we she likes her seat pretty far forward in the car. I like my seat pretty far back. We kind of compromised, but it was still a little bit too far forward for my liking, which meant that when I was changing gears, my wrist was then going from this extreme to this extreme quite a lot, which is no good, right? So it was causing extra stress. So I'm now having it's hilarious when I drive now because my arms are like stretched out. I'm driving like this and I'm changing gears like this.
They see me rolling.
And I'm not doing it because I'm some kind of like badass or something. It's just because my arms are long. I have to.
Yep.
Especially for changing gears in the particular car that I drive now. You know, not such a problem if you are driving a manual or an automatic. Sorry, but when you drive a stick shift, this arm gets the left arm gets used quite a lot, and I drive a lot for my job, as well as teaching. So I hadn't fully realized how much that was having an impact on me. I did rule out gaming. For some people, gaming might be an issue. If you're playing a lot of, especially PC games, competitive shooters and things like that, where you're having to WASD like crazy, not to mention mouse stuff as well.
Yep.
Might want to look at that.
You can get it's a condition that snooker players get from doing that, where you lose fine motor control and you start to get jitters, and you like Stephen Hendry, he's a Scottish snooker player, probably the most amazing one ever. He had to retire. He's actually recently came back, but he's nowhere near where he used to be. He was the top of the world because he had to give up because he had this condition where when he went to take a pot or whatever, a strike, whatever you call it, that in snooker terms, his fine motor controls were not as precise as they used to be because of this condition. And that can also happen to gamers, because first-person shooters, you have to be super accurate all the time, and just because you're using like these really fine motor controls for like mouse movements and things like that, and you're stuck in the one position for ages, you're not moving around. It can be bad over time. I
ruled out the gaming because I was like, I play most of my games using a controller anyway,
right?
So it can't have been that.
Okay.
and controllers are pretty ergonomic already.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that, but those were two things. Straps too low,
Yeah. And the car.
and the car.
It's exactly the same as what was wrong with my drumming situation as well recently with my back. It was the drum stool height, and my car seat height in the
Wow.
van.
Well, there you go.
That's exactly the
That's
same
interesting.
thing. I've spoken about that before.
Yeah. So it could be when you're resting, because you're going to be doing a lot of that, not doing much, because there's a surprising amount of things that I was using my left hand for that I was suddenly like, well, I can't do that anymore. I can't do dishes with one hand. Really, I can't.
Get dry dishes with one hand, just waft it in the wind, just rub it on the cat.
Oh, get all furry, gross. I can't drive.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, here in the United Kingdom, we drive proper cars with proper gear shift. None of your rubbish automatic
nonsense.
No.
That's for old people.
Hate. We're gonna get cancelled now.
Yeah, no. I mean, it's whatever. But yeah, so I had a lot of time to sort of think about what went wrong, and coming up with solutions. So, what was it? Oh, yes.
I shall relieve you of your bass guitar.
Yes, thank you. I always forget how light that thing is. It's crazy. It weighs absolutely nothing.
Yep, big hollow body bass guitar.
It's amazing. Not like my Schecter, which is like a solid piece of swamp
steel.
No, it feels like it. It weighs so much.
That's another thing as well. Your instrument weighs a lot.
Yeah. So making sure you're getting
back support,
good support on your shoulders. Depends on the instrument. Like I've got my P bass, which is made out of basswood or basswood or whatever you want to call it. I think whatever. That's a very light wood. So for a P bass, it's like probably just a little bit. It's a bit heftier than that, but like
yes, yeah.
it probably weighs about as much as like 2 Hofner violin basses. It's still like ridiculously light for a P bass. Think about your instrument weight and make sure that it's all properly supported. Even that bass, which weighs nothing, has an really, really incredible, nice, wide cushioned strap.
Yeah. It's got a Fender strap on it.
Seriously?
It's a Fender strap, yeah.
Wow. Well, there you go. Which, that already makes a huge difference. It's not overkill, really. I don't think of it as being overkill now,
No.
Anyway, so how to treat the pain. Doctor. But I'll tell you about what I did. What I did, because I think it cured it ridiculously quickly. No blame on the doctors and that I encountered, because the situation and I can't imagine it being a doctor in Glasgow, in Greater Glasgow area, is fun at all. I can imagine it's incredibly stressful because you have to see lots of people and you have to give short, quick answers. Whereas if I was living somewhere else, like down where my parents live, for example, which is like a small rural area in Scotland, where they see probably about 5 people a day.
Yeah.
And it's mostly just pensioners that are like, I think this hurts. They have more time for you, even, so I was a bit annoyed with the advice that I got, because it was useless, because I was kind of already doing it.
Take drugs.
Take drugs and don't do anything.
It's like, okay.
It's what this podcast is not about. No, it's what this podcast's against anyway. But
It's taking drugs and doing nothing.
Yeah. Take ibuprofen, which is an anti-inflammatory drug, and
Sit about.
And don't use your hand. And I was like, and we don't know when it'll get better. Let's hope for the best. Luckily for me, this is why I'm talking about, how I actually got quite lucky with this. One of my fiance Rachel is a music teacher, and one of our students used to be a physiotherapist for the army.
Okay.
So she has to get people out back onto the field as quickly as possible.
Right.
No sitting about for like 2-3 weeks waiting for something to get better. It was like 2 or 3 days
Back to work
kind of thing. So she gave me a lot of really useful advice that I'll sort of pass on. Again, I'm not a doctor, but just a couple of things to think about. Thing number one is support your other hand, right? So what's going to happen is...
You can do it. Don't worry. You're not alone. Not that kind of support.
No, not that kind of support.
Okay.
You can totally do that for yourself if you like. I certainly needed it. This hand's not doing anything. This hand is doing everything, right?
Yeah.
So, and this kind of goes back to apparently when you're treating animals, right? If you're treating an animal with like a broken leg, or like a sprained limb or something, you don't just do the one limb and forget about it. You do the other one too.
Yeah.
Because the thing is that it's going to the animal is going to overcompensate. We're animals. I was overcompensating with my right arm because I couldn't use my left.
With
cows, my right hand.
With cows, you have to, because cows have 2 digits. Mm-hmm. Whereas a horse has 1. So you think the hoofs. There's 2 little hoofs that make up the 1 foot. Usually, you get a problem in their foot, like it starts to rot, and then you get dermatitis, which goes into the flesh, and it's like a flesh-eating bacteria thing. So once you clean, it's usually one of the digits. Usually one's okay and one's bad. Sometimes you get both, but if you get one's good and one's bad, you clean out the bad one of all the rot, treat it with antibiotics and bandage it. And then on the other side, the good side, you get some fast setting adhesive glue, and you glue a wooden block, like a shoe almost, onto the good side. And what that does is it obviously the glue sets around it, it's a protectant sealant thing, and also a block to lift up off the damaged one and also make the good side more robust. And then the glue over time dissolves and gives them enough time to heal, and then the block falls off and then it's healed. So that's exactly what they do with animals.
Well, there you go. It's kind of like a similar principle.
Yep.
Basically.
Help the other side, because it's going to...
I'm not saying put another splint in your right hand.
No, of course not.
But what I ended up doing was just stretching it and, just taking care of it. I had a compression sort of like glove on it, basically 24/7. Just to give it that extra bit of support as I was using it to do other menial tasks.
When this happened to me 10, 12 years ago, 2008, 9, so 12, 13 years ago, I bought one of the power balls. So it's like a little
I know the one.
Blue ball with a spinning ball inside it that spins on 2 axes. And the way it works is it spins, and then using inertia, it generates a friction, or it generates a force, and you can use it as an exercise. So when you hold in your hand and it's spinning, and you can spin it in a circle with your hand, and it generates a force. The harder you spin it, the harder the force is, and you can use it as an exercise tool. That's what I was recommended to do with my once my bad wrist got better, building up the muscle with exercise, and I did it with both.
That sounds like a good idea.
I've still got it. It's good. It helps with people suffering from injuries and sports injuries, with like people who play tennis or badminton, and musicians. It's popular with both.
There you go. There's another.
And it really strengthens your fingers as well.
I imagine it must strengthen your grip quite a bit.
Really good.
So that was support.
Don't do it on. Wait till you heal first. Don't do it on a.
Yeah.
On a,
like I can do things now, and I can do some very light tasks with my hand, but I can't lift anything up. You know, I can open doors now.
Yeah, I mean, this only happened a week ago, so it's like it's still fresh.
It's still incredibly fresh, so I'm being like as careful as possible. And I've only just been able to start playing bass, and I'm playing incredibly carefully.
Baba Black Sheep.
Right, so yeah, support your other hand and make sure that you're taking care of this one as much. As much as possible. The anti-inflammatory drugs did work, obviously. That's what they're designed to do. But the other thing that I was recommended to do, up to 3 times a day. And the first couple of times it's really, really sore. But you should do it. It's really, really good for you. So I basically got a bucket, filled it up with ice cold water, and I put an ice pack in it just to make sure it was really, really cold, and dunk my hand in there for 10 minutes and just leave it in there. And then after the 10 minutes is up, take it out, hot water, not boiling, but like pretty warm.
Bath water.
Yeah, bath water, dunk it back in.
10 minutes.
For another 10 minutes, and then repeat that process twice. So it's a total of 40 minutes, and you do that 3-4 times a day.
Jeez.
And that really accelerated and really helped the healing process. It was crazy. I thought, I was like, how's this going to do? I was trying to I didn't do biology in school, so I was like, I don't know. They've only just started doing human anatomy in school now. It's a thing you can study now, human biology.
They've only just started.
Yeah.
Oh, bizarre.
Only just started making it a proper... I know, kind of odd considering that a lot of people want to become doctors.
Breaking news, human beings are from Earth and they are biological.
But, so we started... I noticed a huge difference after the first couple of times. I was like, right, okay. So like after the first session, I couldn't even turn my forearm around. And then after like 2 or 3, I could get it to about there.
Nice.
And then after a couple more, I could do that, which is a huge deal.
Yeah.
Because it didn't just affect my tendons there, it affected my whole forearm, basically. That's the other thing to sort of watch out for, take care of your whole forearm. I was massaging it constantly and just looking after it, because it's not just a small area there in your wrist, it's the whole thing. What else? Oh yeah, make sure you actually get the correct splint for the injury. Right. So the kind that I've got is, it's got a big metal bar right there, and it's basically forcing my wrist right there to be as straight as possible. So just figure out, obviously if you go to a doctor, they'll give you the correct splint. That'll be fine. So
mine was not the correct splint. Mine was an elastoplast rubber splint, black,
Right.
I didn't need anything as severe as that because the pain wasn't as bad as what you're describing. So the thing I used got it into a straight position enough for me to get better.
For me, like, it was just my wrist was constantly wanting to do this all the time. I didn't want to stay in a straight position because that hurt.
Yep.
So I had to force it into the proper position, and then after a while it was fine. But yeah, just a couple of thoughts on treating it. You know, like when you do get a treatment, and if the doctor doesn't say, by the way, you should also support your other hand, do that. Support your other hand, or if you're a drummer and it's like sort of like a heel problem, same thing kind of applies. You know.
Yeah, I've never. Well, I say never. I kind of have. The obviously this story you're telling is basically for guitarists and bass players, bassists.
Although I can imagine it can apply to some like keyboard players as well. I don't know any keyboard players that play their keys like this, but there might be one.
Setting the height for your keys is extremely important. If it's too low,
there you go.
Terrible.
Yeah, you end up with that problem.
That really hurts.
Yeah,
it's got to be like that.
I think at the end of the day, the most important thing is your forearm, your wrist, and your hand need to be completely straight.
Get your right hand out. Right? Put your wrist up there and try and lift your fingers up.
Oh, you can't.
Right, put them there and lift them up. You don't feel the strain in here anymore. So I reckon the best keyboard position is like that. Not straight, but slightly bent.
Right.
It means you've got, because of the tendons, if I'm right in saying you don't have muscles in your fingers, it all comes from tendons up your arm.
I think so.
They need to be able to operate, and if you're cutting that off by making your wrist too rigid, you start to develop problems. Mm-hmm. But keyboard's not really. I mean, I know a bit about keyboard, but not nearly as much as I do about drums. With drums, I've had 3 problems. I've had a left wrist problem from poor technique, and what it was, people on YouTube, all 2 of you, will see, your wrist does not bend that way. So that's from left to right. It moves up and down, like a hinge in a door, right? It's supposed to do that. So I was always told, after I'd done it wrong, palms to the floor when you're playing drums, so that you have proper movement. If you're like that, your wrist isn't supposed to bend that way. It's not supposed to do that. Right? So if you're going to use this technique, basically your wrist has to stay still, and it's your fingers that do all the work. That's what the French timpanists technique is. There's a lot of people who use that technique and have got severe problems because you need a balance of both. But that was problem 1 when I was about 18, 17,
right,
in my left wrist. And then in 2015, 16, I got a problem with my right knee because I couldn't hear myself, or I couldn't feel myself. I couldn't feel my kick drum. I was overplaying on my right foot so that I could hear the bass drum. So I was pounding the bass drum so that I could hear it through my in-ear monitors. And I'm like, how? I can't hear it. What am I going to do? Right? I'm playing too hard. And then I got my throne thumper, which sends the vibrations of the bass drum into my drum throne so that I can feel it. And ever since then, I've not had a problem with my leg because I'm not overplaying to hear myself anymore.
Right.
Problem 3 arose in 2017, 18. I had a really big run of gigs, and I started developing pain in my back, and realised that my drum seat position was too low, to the point where my legs were parallel to the ground. So I had to lift my leg from parallel, so the tops of my leg, my lap was parallel to the ground. I had to lift it up so that it was pointing upward, and then brought it back down again. But when you do that, if you see a picture of a skeleton, your back, all your vertebrae, they all contract, they all compress. And what that does is it pinches nerves in your back. But if you put your drum stool higher, all your vertebrae all open up, and then you've got a slope down on your lap from your hip to your knee, sloping down. So when you lift your leg up to play the kick drum, you're only lifting up to parallel, and you're actually not constricting or whatever, restricting the movement in your back. And the same happened in the van.
Right.
My seat position in the van was too low, and when I was lifting my feet up to hit the pedals, what was happening was I was playing a 4-hour gig, doing damage and inflaming my nerves in my back, and then jumping into a vehicle and carrying it on all the way home.
Yeah.
And once I realized this from a YouTube video, sod education, massive light bulb went off, and I was like, I'm going to raise my drum stool by 3 inches, 2 inches, whatever it was. Yeah. And I did the same in the van. I put it all the way up, and the pain just went gone. In like 2 gigs, gone. I was like, there you go. So drummers, that's the three things that have annoyed me over the last 12, 13 years. And now we've got a guitarist, bassist sort of advice thing now as well.
Yeah. The thing is that I think this came about, I reckon I've probably been playing with pretty crappy technique for the majority of since I've been playing bass. And I've not noticed it.
Just the height of the neck and stuff?
Yeah. And I just kind of gotten used to it. And then no gigs and not sort of keeping it up kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. And then go back playing with that terrible technique, and my wrist just went, hey, nope.
Yeah.
It's not how you're supposed to do it.
So just the fact that you were gigging so much before kept it at bay? And the fact that you're out of shape?
Yeah, I reckon so. Because at the same time, there's loads of like musicians out there that I can think of that like play incredibly, play really, really well, but their technique's disgusting. It's disgustingly bad.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, different people are different shapes as well.
Well, yeah.
If someone was to sit behind my drum kit who's a foot smaller than me, that would be awful for them. They couldn't play it.
Oh yeah, that's the thing.
It's just totally. I've sat like at drum kits where they've been set up for small people. It's just hell. Like the toms are too high for me because their seat is so low because their legs are shorter than mine. So everything feels high for me. So for them, it's normal. If you know what I mean, because they're usually down lower and everything's all proportioned in their back. So going high doesn't affect them. But because I'm low and my spine's compressed, being high is really bad. If you know what I mean. So I've sat down at kits where I'm like, I can't play this. This is like a nightmare. I have to raise the drum height, the drum stool height. Don't have to touch the toms. Toms are fine. But if your drum seat's too low, everything is hard to play. It's mental.
I apologize.
There's like the amount of drummers that have their drum stool far too low. It's crazy. You go to rehearsal studios and you sit behind a kit, and it's just like you feel like you're sitting in the wee Argos kits in the kids department. You're like, hello. I used to teach drums in a primary school, and that was it. It was like a kit built for like 8-year-olds, and I used to have to demonstrate on this little kit, and it was the funniest thing ever because it's the bass drum is like the size of a rack tom, like a jazz kit, and just sitting there like that. Oh, it used to hurt me. So I'm 6'1", so people always say like, "Why is your snare drum so high?" I'm like, I'm 6'1", like it has to be high, or I'll be like this. Playing away down here. It's like,
yeah. No, totally. 100%. Right, so, last thing.
Yep.
So we've been injured. So this is after all this, and hopefully I'm partially healed. I can play bass now, but I just have to be really, really careful about it. So once you've kind of gotten over it, this is really crucial that you don't end up slipping back into, basically making it worse again. So for bass guitarists anyway, just take it really, really easy. Play an instrument. I suppose this applies to anybody. Play an instrument that is really easy to play.
Yeah.
Right? So in my case, as a bass player, if you have a short scale bass available, start with that and play that. So for short scale, I mean like a 30-inch scale bass. And just play that and build up towards your sort of regular long scale 34-inch scale bass guitars. Same thing would probably apply to guitars. Like most guitars are about 25 inches, 25-inch scale, 25.5 I think is like the sort of the bigger end. Maybe start like with a slightly smaller guitar, maybe like a 22 or 23-inch, something like that, and build up. I know a lot of guitarists who play multi-scale guitars found that was really useful for them because it ergonomically it just makes a lot of sense, because their fingers aren't all cramped up. For me, full scale bass is a huge jump. So it is what it is. So that's kind of my plan. Is I've got a short scale bass already, so I'm going to be playing that for a little bit.
Yes.
And then looking at getting a medium scale bass, 32-inch, and then I can start playing my normal basses once this is all better. That's thing one. Just play an instrument. When you get back into play an instrument, it's nice and easy to play.
And drummers, rearrange your kit
so that it's easier to play.
If it's your back, the problem is your drum stool. Pretty much always your drum stool. If your drum stool is too low, then you'll start to get problems with your neck and your lower back because you're compressing your spine when you play the pedals, and then you'll be hurting your neck trying to reach the cymbals. So what you do to really help yourself is lower the cymbals a little bit, lower the toms as far as you can get them, raise your drum stool so that the top of your thigh is sloping down towards your knee, not parallel with the ground. Then you should be good. And then wrist and arm technique. If you're playing matched grip is both sticks are the same in your hand. Palms to the floor. Always play palms to the floor. Do not stick your pinkies out. I've seen professional drummers, touring with pop star level drummers playing with their pinky out because they have no technique.
That's what I'm saying. There's so many.
There's an idiot that taught me in higher level education who used to play rudiments with his pinkies out. This is a guy who's 20 years older than me and has played with names that you have heard of, and he's teaching in an educational institution in Scotland and can't play rudiments without sticking his pinkies out like a 5-year-old.
It's the same, and you see a lot of bass guitarists who either have their strap their bass is touching their chin practically, and they're doing all sorts of nonsense over here, or they're playing all the way down by their balls, basically, just like this, and this is all messed up, and so that's what I'm saying. I think people after a while kind of get used to it, but there is going to come a point where that kind of really bad technique will... It's
the same with singers as well.
Bite you, it's and will get you.
Singers are like, I'm just going to do some vocal warm-ups. Hold on till I just sing this Nirvana song. Ah! Yeah, I'm warmed up.
yeah. So that's the next... Actually, that takes me up to the next point. Warm up. For goodness sake. Just warm up. It's really, really important. Warm up doesn't even need to be a super long, lengthy process. 5-10 minutes. It's all really it takes. Scales, a couple of rudimentary kind of up the fretboard kind of exercises. And
Single stroke rolls on a practice pad for drummers, and the power ball. If you've got a power ball, it's a good warm up. You can buy two, get one for each. You can get them for your ankles as well.
No way.
Yeah. You can get a foot strap, and then you can do it on your feet as well. It's really hard, but I've not got that. But
that's insane.
Yeah, I don't warm up enough.
There's just something people walking around with jacked up ankles. That's incredible.
Skipped arm day.
Yeah, making sure you're playing. We've already touched on this. Making sure everything's as optimal as possible. From going forward. If it means that you have to play bass guitar looking a little bit like a dork, so what? Like, it's all about your safety at the end of the day.
Yeah, I play 70 gigs a year and my back isn't broken. Oh yeah, I'm such a dork.
I know, right? It's like, but he looks like an idiot. He's not got his bass all the way down here. Yeah, just don't. There are some people that definitely think like that. It's kind of annoying.
I don't warm up enough. This is gonna kick me in the backside. Like I
honestly, I don't warm enough. I don't warm up enough either. I probably should warm up more.
Yep.
And when all of this is said and done, get to a specialist as soon as possible, which is the last thing on my list. I definitely need to do that. I'm quite lucky that I live in an area where there is a music physiotherapist that I can, who runs a clinic that I can go and see.
All right. Good.
So if you are in, just have a little Google search, see if there's anybody in your area that does similar kind of things, and just tell them, just talk to them about the injury, and they'll help you sort of work through it basically, and kind of help you not to, help you so that doesn't kind of happen again.
Yep.
Basically, ideally try and get a physiotherapist that understands your instrument.
Yeah.
Or who has worked with string players before, and has an understanding. I'd imagine that most, physiotherapists would understand, or would know what's going on. But just something to think about. If they've never worked with a guitarist and you're going to be the first guitarist, is that a good?
There's so many different things they could be. I mean, if it's your left hand, it could be like your action's too high and you're pressing too hard all the time and it's straining things.
Totally.
String gauge is too heavy. You're playing with the wrong plectrum. Your strap's too loose or too tight, or your guitar's too heavy. Maybe you're only 5 foot and 8 stone.
Well,
and
there you go.
Got a big, heavy
that's
guitar.
Another part of it as well. It's
instrument size.
That's the other thing that's given me a bit of a kick up the backside, is that I actually need to get. I think it's just lockdown. It's just made me really my upper body strength is actually pretty terrible, and I'm playing an instrument that requires quite a lot of it, so I need to get that a lot. I need to do something about that. But anyway, so that's how to avoid some thoughts on how to avoid injuries, and if you do get an injury, what to do about it. Because the last thing we want people to do is to not do anything about it, and then it gets worse, and then you can't play your instrument anymore, and then you have to think about doing something else.
Yep.
Because it's all about leveling up your band. That's what we want to do.
Yeah, you can't level up your band if you're injured.
If you can't level up your band if you've got an injured hand.
Catchphrase. That's going to be our catchphrase from now on.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. It's the same for anyone in a band, any instrument. There's right ways and wrong ways of doing it. And yeah, this hopefully will stop you. This episode will hopefully stop you from making the mistake and learning the hard way. Hopefully you can take some stuff away from this and just apply it now before something bad happens.
Yeah, totally.
Drummers, I can only speak for drummers, but drummers have a thing where, and if this is you, think about it. A lot of drummers tend to, usually younger drummers, get signature sticks of their favourite drummer, like Steve Gadd or Dave Weckl or Mike Portnoy or whoever.
Okay.
And they get their signature sticks. Now, those signature sticks are made for the person that they were endorsed to.
Right.
So Chad Smith, whatever his name is, or Dave Weckl, they've designed a stick for him and he's sold it to mass market for people to buy. Chances that stick being suited for you? Pretty low, but it might. You might have a similar size and build and technique to the person, so it might be fine. But don't just go out and buy a stick because it's your favourite drummer. I've done that, and bad choice. I've bought signature sticks in the past. I've owned a couple of pairs, and almost all of them, in fact, all of them have been terrible for me. So when picking a stick, it's got to feel like you're not holding a stick. It's got to feel like it's an extension of your arm. If you're aware of the stick, it's the wrong stick. And that goes for it being too light or too heavy. If it's too heavy, you feel like you're throwing around a ball on a string, like a swing ball. It feels like it's always behind you because it's heavy. It's too heavy for you. And the rebound that you get off the drum is less because it's heavier. And if it's too light, you don't get any, you get rebound, but you don't get any impact. So you have to play harder to get louder, and then you do damage that way. So there's a balance in between. If you're female, a lighter stick is probably going to be better, just because of the reduced weight and longer as well, for extra reach. You see some drummers, online drummers, are, wee small females playing drums. They've got an extra inch of length on the stick, but they're really light gauge just to get that reach. Where big, 18 stone male drummers have big chunky sticks because they've got more weight behind them. They've got they've got a stronger stroke. Yeah. I used to play with 7As, which are really thin sticks. They're like jazz sticks.
Yeah.
That was a terrible idea. I think that contributed to my wrist problems because I was overplaying to try and get volume. And then I moved up to 3A, which are like flipping tree trunks. They're so heavy. And that was I had the opposite problem where I had not enough rebound and they were too heavy. So I settled in the middle for 5A.
5, right.
And I've been using 5A for the last 10 years and
no problems.
No problems. I moved stick manufacturer because they kept splitting and breaking. So I used to have Vic Firth and they kept splitting all the time and I was sick of it. So I moved to ProMark and I've never had a problem with shop around.
Yeah.
Because it can really make a difference over time.
It's same with bass guitars. If you're a very small person and a long scale, you're having to really, really stretch.
Yeah.
You're not...
It's a mate of mine who did that exact same thing. He had a full-scale jazz bass, Fender jazz bass. Lovely instrument, but he's only about 5'4", 5'5". He was struggling. It was like...
Well, yeah, they're big, man. Like, I'm pretty, like...
So...
I'm like 5'11", and like it depends on the instrument.
He got rid of it. He sold it, and he bought a Fender Mustang bass, which is smaller.
Yeah, 30 inch.
And it sounds great. and it plays great, and it's the right size. It's like it's not a one size fits all kind of thing. It shouldn't be like that.
Yeah, just because your favorite player plays a P bass doesn't mean you have to get a P bass as well.
Yeah.
Especially, and you can get short scale P basses that sound pretty P bass y. Like, so you do have options. Anyway, yeah, cool. Those are my kind of final thoughts on that.
Nice one.
Yeah.
Well, if
kind of an important episode, I think.
Yeah. Hopefully you have got something from this episode, and if you have, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts.
Tell us your horrible injury stories.
Yeah. If you have any experiences with
and what you did
injuries.
To make it better.
Yeah. I know metal drummers have problems with their feet with the blast beat things that they do. I've never had problems with my feet. I've had problems with my knee. That's all I've had. My legs have been pretty all right. I don't play music that's really feet intensive. So yeah, if anyone's got any, if there are any metal guys out there who suffer stuff, let us know. What solutions did you come up with? Did you have to raise the height in your van or move your seat back in your car or what? Yeah. Anyway, as always, if you've got any suggestions for episode topics, let us know. We're on Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and all the usual places. Next week, I think we're going to do the rise and fall of Weezer.
Yeah, it might have to be a two-parter because, oh boy.
It's a big one.
It's a big one. They have a lot of history.
Yeah. Nice one. Cool.
Yeah.
Until then.
Bye-bye.
Hope you all have a good week. See you next time. Bye.